Well, look at you, tourists. La célébrité on the tip of everyone's tongue. If I'd have known you were gonna cause this much trouble, I'd have kept my mouth shut about the reserve.
Ain't you dead?
Maybe.
So, we've all seen those videos where someone spends 100 days in a video game. And let's be real, hardly any of them are actually spending 100 real life days in whatever game it is. And it's the same deal here in The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners 2, as the game has a day and night cycle, and you have to sleep to progress to the next day. I ended up spending 100 plus days in the game without even meaning to.
Oh no.
Yes.
Alright, yeah, cheers, bro. Actually, I'm beginning to like you.
Recently, I've been going through some stuff, and after spending 8 plus hours on my feet serving drunk beggars, and then walking 5 plus miles home, probably the last thing any sane person would want to do is spend more time standing on their feet playing VR games. However, being able to retreat into this small sanctuary at the end of the world I found to be really therapeutic, to the point where I completely stopped progressing the story for probably 70 or so in-game days, and just focused on going out gathering loot for my home and completing the exile trade orders. As I got close to that 100 day mark, I started to do the main story again, and I'm honestly glad I didn't rush it. All I heard when looking at reviews of this game is how it wasn't as good as the first game and was full of glitches. All I can say to that is,
Why do you keep letting them take drugs?
in all seriousness, this is the worst glitch I've come across, and other than shattering that precious immersion, it's really not a big deal. Honestly, I don't know why this game got such a bad rep. The visuals are better, the addictive prep gear go out, get loot, go home gameplay loop is better than ever, with loads of new loot and things to collect.
There's shit, every single thing.
The atmosphere in the day is fantastic, and at night, god damn it gets scary. The deep blacks on the PSVR 2 create a lot of moments where you can hear a zombie shuffling around nearby before you can see them, and it's bloody terrifying in the best possible way. The VR mechanics are almost flawless, to the point they make a lot of other VR games feel bad. Up to this point, they are the best I've experienced, bar none. The backpack system should be an industry standard. The gunplay is fantastic, and even the degrading and jamming of the weapons is fine-tuned to the point that it never feels annoying, but does create moments of sheer terror and panic. The melee weapons and combat are just as fantastic as the original game. You can feel the weight when you swing them, and they have the right momentum. Slicing into a zombie's skull with a cleaver is so satisfying in a maybe I'm the real monster kind of way.
Hans, are we the baddies?
The resting place itself has been expanded from the first game, and I cannot express just how much joy it brings me to go out into a zombie-infested wasteland, gather food, drugs and ammo, take them home and physically put them on a shelf. The addition of nighttime scavenging and loot you can only find at night really ramp up the scare factor that was missing a little from the first game. Going into the school in the first game was pretty much the scariest part of the game. Now we go into the school at night, which makes it 100 times worse, and that isn't even the scariest place in the game anymore. That title now goes to the hospital in the New Tower region. And I am not kidding you, the first time I ventured to just the outside of the hospital in the daytime, looked up at it and heard the wind howling, it literally gave me chills, and I turned around and went home.
Somehow that's even more disconcerting.
And that experience in video games is one so rare it's difficult to even explain to someone that hasn't played in VR. The visual atmosphere coupled with the sound design working in perfect tandem to trigger those primal monkey parts of your brain is just sheer perfection. And that's in the daytime. Imagine what it's like at night. When I was tasked with finding 5 boxes of medical grade scissors that you can only get from the bowels of this infernal place, I'm not going to lie, I think it took me 4 separate trips. Every single step deeper into the labyrinth of death felt claustrophobic and overwhelming. So I adopted the strategy of leaving as soon as I found a single box of cursed scissors rather than trying to get all 5 in one trip. And that being a viable strategy is wonderful. It's a small thing perhaps, but having that freedom to choose goes a long way to making you feel like a real person, making real decisions in a real world. The story itself basically continues from where you left off in the first game, and you can import your save from that game, so the decisions you made will follow you into this game. Now, I didn't import my save, which is also fine and gives me a good excuse to play through both games again at some point, which I'm looking forward to tremendously. Mild spoilers, it's a story of revenge or retribution. Like, you know, the title of the game. You're being pursued by a literal mad Axeman who blames you for the murder of his family. And frankly, I've killed so many people at this point, I genuinely cannot remember if I did have anything to do with those particular deaths or not. And while you've got the Axeman to deal with, the real meat and potatoes is you trying to make all the moves necessary to take down the tower and the leader, known as Mama. This is a world you can become super immersed in. And even after spending 100 plus days in this world and completing the story, there's still things to do. And I think there's 3 different endings to the game, adding to that replayability. And the ending I got made the entire map overran with zombies. And that's a consequence I have to live with, and if I want to fix that, I have to go out and physically kill the zombies. The Exile side missions are a wonderful addition from the first game, and basically you find an NPC at night and they ask you to give them specific kinds of loot, which you then have to find at your own leisure and take them back to them, whereby they will give you a bunch of loot in return, and often, not always, but often, that loot is pretty good or useful. And once you've completed the 3 loot goblin missions for an area, when you return to said area in the daytime, there's now a camp of exiles with a whole bunch of very nice loot for you to take free of charge anytime you pass through. Ultimately, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners 2 Retribution is not just a game or even just a VR game. For me, it is the VR game, an entire world with consequences that you can escape to. And really, the only thing I have left to say is why? Why? Why is this still the pinnacle of VR games? Why haven't other developers taken this recipe and expanded on it? That's the real question. So, from the burning ruins of New Orleans, I've been your host, Rumpelstiltskin, and if you never hear from me again, I hope you have a nice life. Also, if by some miracle you are still here listening to this, please consider subscribing. I've recently been streaming the PSVR 2 version of Into the Radius here on YouTube, and if you're into listening to intense heavy breathing, you'll want to check that out. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, random stranger, and good night.